Elestrals hosted its first official tournament of the Moonrise metagame yesterday, with 82 different players vying for their spot at the top. After a long day of play, I managed to secure myself a top 8 spot, but unfortunately lost out in the first round with a 2-1 loss. It ended up going down to 0-0 spirits, but I wasn't able to pull it out, so that landed me in 6th place. So today I thought we would go through the deck list that I did it with. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any time to do any animation or anything like that, so I'm just going to be going off of the Play Network page and off of my actual deck list for the day. So, I played Bugs. That's it. Bug Box. People look at it as fives, kind of, but not really. I do have a decent amount of 5-stat Elestrals, quote unquote, but a lot of it's just, they're bugs. They happen to be fives. So in order to facilitate our deck, we're playing 2 copies of Ardbud. Ardbud says whenever you play it, you can search your deck for a bug. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 different bug 1-drops that we can play just in our main deck. So Ardbud has 9 separate targets he can easily find out throughout the deck, making it an extremely strong card, and I liked playing it. Sometimes I did end up cutting it out, though, because I just kind of needed more beaters, and Ardbud sometimes wouldn't really do much on the turn that it was played, unless it was played early game. So I did side it out sometimes, but honestly, Ardbud still felt good at 2. I played 1 copy of Equal Links. I figured with all the Earth and having Ardbud, and then I also played Demeter. I figured it would be a pretty good combo to deal with backline, since a lot of people right now are just playing 1 or 2 anyways to play around Hurricane. However, I never really saw Equal Links and Demeter together, or Equal Links with a Nexus Bank at all. So honestly, this was kind of the weakest card in the deck for the day. It did kind of nothing at all. I think it might have popped a single rune all day, and that's weird because Equal Links is stupidly strong normally. But I think it was just because I didn't have enough Earth to utilize Equal Links properly. So in this deck, I don't think Equal Links was a very good pick. I had 2 copies of Viscerus. I mean, Viscerus is just Viscerus. It's extremely strong. It's a 5 attacker that you can easily beat over, summon another Viscerus. As long as I was able to resolve Viscerus, which most of the time I waited till end games as if I could. Uh, as long as I was able to resolve Viscerus effect, most of the time I ended up winning those games. That's just how it came down to, because I would just have such a board state at that point. Because by the time I summoned Viscerus, I would already have 1 Elestral, summon the Viscerus out, beat over their Elestrals, have a 3rd Elestral, and they would pretty much have nothing on the board at that point. So Viscerus kind of just signaled endgame as long as I could get his effect out and active. Aster Rabbit. Aster Rabbit is so busted, it's ridiculous. I had 100%, like, whoever played more Aster Rabbit's effect won. That's how the game went. Just 100% of the time, whoever played Aster Rabbit's effect more by either just playing them out, utilizing Nexus effects, whatever, 100% of my games went to whoever just played the Rabbit effect more. It is ridiculous. This card needs to be banned, like, ASAP. It should have been banned set freaking 1 when Spark It got banned instead of Spark It. Now we're still dealing with Ash Rabbit in set 4, and it's a problem. It is just a big, big problem that needs to be dealt with. It's actually kind of sad that it hasn't been. But I've got 1 copy of Elechick because, I mean, Elechick's just kind of busted in the fact that it can come out as a 7 attacker plus giving you the Divine Rune. Even though I had the Elechick, I pretty much always grabbed Zeus. We'll go down here, playing 2 copies of Zeus, 1 copy of Demeter. I pretty much always grabbed the Zeus just because it was always more beneficial to grab. Like, I never really had Equal Links plus Elechick since they're both limited to 1, so I never really ended up searching the Demeter because I never really had a purpose for it. If I had Demeter in hand, I just happened to find it. 2 copies of Nabi. Nabi's extremely strong for the fact that against non-solar or lunar decks, it allows you to just give stuff -2 attack and just beat over it, and then summon another Elestral over top of it, which is Doppelgator, and possibly swing for 2 or destroy a secondary Elestral. This combo is pretty good. I wouldn't run more than this, though. The 2-1 actually felt really good. There were times where I was just citing this combo out because against lunar and solar decks, this doesn't really do much at all. So I was citing this out actually a decent amount, but this still felt good in the main deck with this ratio. So I'd keep that there. Got 3 copies of Specteris because Specteris is extremely strong right now. Honestly, I figured Galaxy would be more relevant than it was. That's why it's the only bug that you see here that I actively have 3 copies of, because I figured shutting down abilities was going to be a lot more prevalent than it was. But this actually was really strong. Weirdly enough, I kept a hand that was 3 Specteris, 1 Rabbit, and a Gorgon's Gaze, and I just was able to continuously destroy Hydrakes that he was playing out, and Specteris was just going nuts that game. I literally just played out Specteris 3 turns in a row, and I ended up winning that game. Got 2 copies of Warmite. Warmite is so nuts, it's ridiculous. Like, people sleep on Warmite. This can take out 2-drop Elestrals because you once per turn, you can target an Celestial and give it -4 attack until the end phase. That's literally better than Zeus, as long as they're in attack position. And if they're in defense position, I mean, that kind of sucks. Don't get me wrong. It's not as good as Elechic plus Zeus in that manner. But I mean, I most of the time I had Zeus anyways, so if they were in defense position, I just could do that. And a lot of times, just to play around altars and that, I would just make sure to subtract their attack just in case they decided to alter. Bormite was extremely strong in that way too, like take care of a Viserys, make him a 1 attacker, even if he alters, he can't just destroy me and then get another Viserys out. So Warmite's a sleeper pick. I've been telling people that for a while. I would highly recommend put it just running 2 though, because against defensive walls, this does really nothing. And then 1 copy of Lavalith because, I mean, Lavalith is Lavalith. It's extremely strong. Anytime this slapped the game, it really helped. Like, it came down, it really helped. It didn't necessarily signal the end of any games, but it was an extremely strong card that would help me out a lot to come back from bad situations. And there were times where, like, I would go first, I'd have, like, Lavalith in hand or whatever, or I'd go second. They would already have an Celestial down, and I would just let them play a second one down so I could play my Lavalith, destroy their stuff, and then they couldn't really do much for a while until they could get through the Lavalith. We've got 3 copies of Cryoblast. Cryoblast is extremely strong right now because a lot of people are playing like kind of fives meta like I am right now. Cryoblast is extremely strong against my deck in itself. It's in a very similar way, it's very strong against other people's decks. Cryoblast also just paired with Zeus essentially is a weirdly colored earthquake that just allows you to kill pretty much anything that's not a 3-drop or higher, pretty much. There's no higher, but doesn't have 5 defense or higher, which most Elestrals don't even do that until they hit a 3-drop. I've got 3 copies of Ambrosia. That's just because Ambrosia's broken and healing all the time. Since everything takes your life, you might as well always have the ability to heal. There were some games where I literally just won due to top decking Ambrosia. Like, I can think of like 2 or 3 different games where I just ended up getting Ambrosia in like the last card or two, and that saved me the game in its entirety. Got Earthquake and Laurels just because extremely strong removal. Earthquake is unconditional, so that means you can always play it no problem. Got 3 copies of PTA because, like I said, removal is king. So the whole point of this deck is pretty much just trying to not let your opponent stick multiple guys on the board, because it's really hard in the Lustrals to come back from having multiple guys on the board. So we'll have shields and PTAs and all that to essentially make it to where we can always have just one guy on the board that we can deal with. And then Tsunami, 2 of them, because I thought there was going to be a lot heavier of an emphasis on water, which the later in the day I got, the more of an emphasis on water there was. So, I mean, I was kind of right. It just didn't really do too much early game. I would have, like, early in the day, I would have rather had the 3, but later in the day, it felt nicer to have the 2, so it was just kind of matchup dependent. Um, yeah, Gorgon's Gaze obviously always shut it off. Zeus, already talked about, it's the best to find in the entire game. Demeter, I literally only played it because the Spirit Math was a little wonky, and then I wanted to also play Equal Links. But honestly, I would just take Equal Links, Demeter out, run 3rd Zeus, and I'd come down here and put one of these Frostmites in the main deck, because Frostmite is cracked. But we'll get into the Spirit deck in a second. Spirit or the side deck in a second. Spirit deck is just one Levy Fin, three Vipyro. Got the Levy Fin for tsunamis, three Vipyros because you want to have the ability to play Lavalith and also have the ability to play your Warmite without shutting down Lavalith. So that's why there's three in there. Plus, you can sometimes, if you have Warmite plus Lavalith, you can always just ascend over the Warmite the next turn. So sometimes I would expend the fire, and then if I knew I had both of them and I could keep it alive, I would just make sure to ascend over it. Got two Flare Mine here for the Cryoblast. That always felt good. There was a lot of times where I was expending a Flare Mine because I knew I wasn't going to see multiple Cryoblast at the same time. Even so, like anytime that I felt like I needed that extra Flare Mine, I was always able to pick it up with Ambrosia because I was just very uh I kept my Ambrosias close to my chest. I didn't play them until I felt like I actually needed them for spirit management because of how tight this deck is. Because pretty much anytime I take damage, I almost always have to choose what I'm leaving on and what I'm shutting off, which is extremely hard, don't get me wrong, but once you get down to the spirit management part of it, it's not too bad. There's only like one or two situations where I ever was like, dang, I really wish I would have had this spirit, but it didn't come up too often. Uh, Side deck, we've got one copy of Leviathan because we have a decent amount of water in our sideboard. And here is where my biggest mistake of the entire day came from, was my side deck. Because if you'll see here, I have one copy of Hurricane. If you'll see, I have zero fucking wind spirits. And I didn't realize this till I went to side it in for the first time. I was up till like 3 a.m. and I thought I threw it in the side deck and I wasn't really paying that much attention. I think I had Thunderstorm at this slot at 1.2, so I didn't need the Wind Spirit, and then I put it back in, and I think I just forgot the Wind Spirit like an idiot, and that was a big mistake. Having a single Hurricane would have actively been nice. There were a lot of times where just one Hurricane would have easily just made my game so much easier. So that was my biggest mistake of the day, was before the day even started, I forgot to put a Wind Spirit in my side deck like a moron. Divine Blessing, this is nuts. Like, whenever I saw this, and as long, like, pretty much whenever I saw this, I was winning the game because I never respected Hurricane throughout the entire day, anyways. So this, if I saw somebody was on Hurricane, allowed me to continue to not respect it. Plus, also there were times where they would try to like earthquake my Ass Rabbit, and I'd just be like, "Yeah, I'm good. Divine Blessing, that's not happening." And then they would have no way around it because Ass Rabbit's stupidly broken. And if they're willing to waste an earthquake on an Ass Rabbit, that means they have zero way to out it. So canceling an earthquake is extremely strong. Two Altar Stars, I would change this. Honestly, I'm not really sure what for yet, but I think I brought this in like once or twice. It did jack shit. I would just change this. I would figure out something else for this slot at the moment. One Tsunami, yeah, that I would keep that in there because putting the third one in would seem a little excessive in the later matches. I had two copies of Spoiled Fruit for the heal matchups. I just never saw this card. Like, I cited this thing in probably a good 50% of my games, and I just never drew into it. I don't know what's up with me. Never found it. Can't really tell you how it worked out, because I never played with it. Two Eddies. These were pretty good for, like, if they just wanted to sit on Astro Rabbit all the time. I just cited in the Eddies. That was pretty much what they were intended for, was just if they wanted to sit on Astro Rabbit. That was the whole purpose of them being in the side deck, so they did their job. We have two Toxion. This is for the Blistrix matchup in particular. Like, that's it. Like, Blistrix burns through so many spirits. My concept for getting through that deck was simply, I'm just gonna finish you off with the last 3 or 4 spirits with the Toxion, and you can't really do anything about it. And it actually was decently effective. Like, I only played against Self Mill one time, but I did side these in, and it did come into effect. So, I mean, I thought it was a pretty decent idea. I would honestly possibly run one in the main board, but I don't know. That might be a stretch also. But Toxion at 2 in the sideboard, even though it's a weird look, because we're able to just search it out with our Ardbud, I thought it was pretty good. And then The unsung hero of this sideboard is Frostmite. Frostmite is such a menace that people don't even realize. Because it shuts off galaxies, it shuts off Aster Rabbits. Literally pair it with Cryoblast, and anything under 7 defense that's not Frost is just instantly dying. If you have Zeus on top of that, anything under 10 defense that's not Frost instantly dies. Like, this card is insane. It's just not necessarily insane as a main board card because it doesn't have the ability to get over people's like fives decks and stuff like that. So I would recommend like maybe one in the main board instead of the equal links that I was talking about. But honestly, two in the side is pretty good, and I would stick with the two in the side. But that is the entirety of my deck that got top 8. Unfortunately, I didn't really have any time to do animations, so this is how we had to look at it real quick. So, what do you guys think of the deck? Is this a format that you guys actually like? Do you prefer this? Let me know down in the comments below, and I hope you all have a good day. Peace.